The Midwest and Northeast could be in for a significant snowstorm as we approach the weekend, as the latest runs of the European and the GFS models have been showing an interesting trend regarding the trajectory of this next low pressure system, including developing a low pressure system just off the East Coast, where many of the Interstate 95 corridor cities such as New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. all get involved with this next potential snowstorm that is expected to move into the Northeast by weekend. If we were to take a look at the latest run of the European model, we do see that the European model is forecasting a low pressure system to move into the midsection of the country as a direct result of the atmospheric river going on right up along the west coast that's bringing numerous storm systems throughout the United States. This will be one of them, and we're going to see just enough cold air behind this low pressure system that's going to interact with this very warm air mass located right around southeast, where temperatures are between 20 to 30 degrees above average, and that unstable environment will create a high level of convection for not only severe weather to occur along southeast, but a significant snowstorm to develop, and could set the stage for a major nor'easter to develop as we approach the weekend. If we were to continue to move forward, we see that by the Thursday time frame, the low pressure system is located right around Missouri. We do have the possibility of severe weather just south of this low pressure system moving through Arkansas and Texas by the early Thursday time frame, so you want to pay very close attention to that, including in Memphis. And we do see a couple of snow showers located just to the northwest of this low pressure system right around the Kansas City area. And if I were to continue to move forward, we do see that the area of snow expands as well as the area of rain, as this low pressure system definitely deepens as this continues to move eastward as a result of a highly unstable environment we're seeing throughout the Midwest as we approach the midday on Thursday. And this snow is expected to impact more so the extreme northern portions of the Midwest. We could see some snow on the backside of this storm right around the Chicago area very late Thursday into early Friday, so you want to pay very close attention to that if you're in the Chicago area. And look at how significant this jet stream dip is. We're seeing just very cold temperatures behind this low pressure system. And however, for anywhere that's gonna for I'd say most of the Northeast, this will most likely be a rain event when it comes to at least this first low pressure system. I'll tell you about this next potential major snowstorm in a minute, but in terms of this first storm system, it should primarily be a rain event for most of the Northeast as a result of a very powerful ridge that's going to be located just to the east of this low pressure system that's going to force it further northward before it can approach the Northeast. And as a result of this low pressure system moving forward more northward, so will the warm air associated on the eastern side of this low pressure system, the southeastern side, where we're seeing a strong southerly flow associated with this low pressure system. However, as this low pressure system continues to move further northeastward, it's going to weaken this ridge and push it a little bit further to the east, and that could set the stage for this cold air to build in to the northeast. And since there's just enough cold air behind this low pressure system, we could see a very highly unstable environment in the southeast for a new low pressure system to form. And since the cold air will build by the time this low pressure system forms just off the Carolinas, we could see that possibility of a significant snowstorm right up along the East Coast cities, where we do see that we sort of see a negative tilt by how based on how much cold air will be behind this low pressure system and how powerful this low pressure system is. And when we see a negative tilt with the jet stream, where we see the jet stream wind shift more from a easterly direction, that creates a highly unstable environment because the warmer air mass is going to be forced to move northward of the cooler air mass, and that just creates a highly unstable environment. So it's very well possible this low pressure system could rapidly intensify as it approaches New England. And we do see heavy snowfall, especially in the interior northeast. And you're probably thinking, well, this still looks like a rain event for New York City and even Philadelphia. But if I were to continue to move forward, the European model is leaning on pretty much steering this low pressure system back up along the East Coast, where we do see heavy snowfall right around Philadelphia. Washington, D.C. is getting involved, Delmarva Peninsula, and that snow could easily move a little bit further eastward to impact New York City, as well as the cold air will be in place for this to be almost entirely a snow event for some of the major East Coast cities. So this is definitely something we're going to need to pay very close attention to, especially since for most of this winter so far, the European model has been the most reliable model. Of course, I'm going right around 6 to 5 days out. So there's still a lot of time for the European model to really iron out the forecast. We're going to really need to see we're going to really need to see first off how much instability there will be right along southeast, because the timing of when this low pressure system develops will be huge when it comes to the trajectory. And also we're going to need to see how the jet stream positions itself as we approach this weekend, because of course, and what will determine that is how powerful this initial low pressure system is, because if this initial low pressure system ends up being a little bit more powerful than anticipated, then we would see a stronger northerly flow, and that would create more of a negative tilt a little bit earlier for this low pressure system to develop earlier, and as a result we see more of a track that moves a little bit further westward, which might bring the snow a little bit further westward as well. However, if this low pressure system ends up being a little weaker, we'd see this second low pressure system develop a little bit later, and this would shift its trajectory to more of an easterly direction, to where maybe more of New England and Boston could get involved with snow, or New York City. We're definitely going to need to pay very close attention to how this jet stream positions itself as we approach this weekend, because that'll play a big role in terms of where exactly the heaviest snowfall will be right up along the East Coast. And even before this second low pressure system develops, we still could see very heavy snowfall for a large portion of the Midwest as well, where we do see that Michigan is getting involved with very heavy snowfall, as there's going to be just enough cold air right along the northwestern portion of this low pressure system to bring a significant snowstorm to Michigan and even the northern portion of Indiana. And the European model expects a pretty heavy band of snow to stick around Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky for you guys to potentially experience 3 to 6 inches of snow. So this is definitely something we're going to need to pay very close attention to over the next several days, as it seems likely that at least for this first storm system, it will primarily be a rain event for much of the Northeast, but for those hoping for snowfall right along the coastal Northeast, the second low pressure system could be your first shot at it, as the European model is very confident in bringing a pretty significant snowstorm to portions of the Northeast, where we could see 6 to 12 to even over a foot of snow in some areas associated with the second low pressure system. This is what the European model is expecting when it comes to snowfall, and we do see a large portion of upstate New York experiences 6 to 12 inches of snow and even over a foot of snow in some areas, especially in the higher elevations of the Catskill Mountains, and even the bigger cities like Philadelphia. You're right up along the border of 3 to 6 inches of snow. So is Washington D.C. And while New York City, at least in the European model scenario, isn't experiencing much of any snowfall, there still easily could be that possibility that the snowfall could move a little bit further eastward, to where New York City could get involved as well. We're still around 5 days out, so there's still a lot of time for the track to change with the forecast, especially since the GFS model is forecasting the snowfall to move to impact areas a little bit further eastward, closer to New England, where Connecticut would get more involved in the GFS model scenario. And even if we were to look further westward, we do see a large portions of Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia experience 3 to 6 inches of snow, and over 6 inches of snow is expected based on what the European model is stating, right up along the western portion of Michigan. So this would be a widespread snow event for millions of Americans. So you want to pay very close attention to this, because you could be in for a very significant snowstorm in near future. Now let's take a look at the GFS model. So what makes this forecast a little bit more certain regarding the development of a second low pressure system just off the northeast is that the GFS model also predicts that there will be a second low pressure system that will develop just off the Carolinas and move up in the northeast and bring potentially another significant snowstorm right up along the east coast. And in terms of this first storm system, the GFS model is very similar, pretty much depicting a scenario that's very similar to the European model, where we're seeing heavy snow throughout Chicago, Illinois, the northern portion of Michigan. You need to pay very close attention to that. The only key difference is that the GFS model doesn't expect the snow band to be as elongated to bring as heavy of a snow threat to Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, but we're still seeing a very significant snowstorm throughout the northern Midwest, and we're seeing a very similar trajectory with this first low pressure system. So that forecast is likely, and it is likely at this point. I'd say that we're going to see a pretty powerful low pressure system develop develop just off the northeast coast. However, the key difference with the GFS model is that it wants to bring the heavier snowfall a little bit further northward and eastward, to where more of New England gets involved, more of Hartford, Connecticut gets involved, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont, of course, get more involved in this scenario. And the reason why the GFS model is forecasting this low pressure system to move a little bit further, to bring the snowfall a little bit further northeastward, is that the GFS model doesn't expect this negative tilt with the jet stream to develop until later during the run. And by the time the negative tilt develops, it'll already be at the same latitude as New Jersey at that point. So it would bring more of the snow a little bit further northward, because the low pressure system would move a little bit further westward a little bit later in the run, where it's going to be a little bit more northward, so it could interact with that cooler air for the snow to be a little bit further northeastward than the European model scenario. So we're going to need to pay very close attention to when this negative tilt builds with the jet stream, because that will play a big role in terms of when it'll take that slight turn to the west before it eventually moves northeastward, and that will determine who will get the heaviest snowfall with this snowstorm. But pretty much the entirety of the Northeast at this point needs to pay very close attention, because I'd say it's more likely than not, at least somewhere in the Northeast associated with this second low pressure system, you will experience a significant snowstorm. So make sure to pay close attention to that. So this is what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall. Of course, the snowfall is a lot further northeastward, where we're seeing a large area of 6 to 12 inches throughout Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And we see the heavier snowfall impact Hartford, Connecticut as well, where you could experience 3 to 6 inches of rain, of snow right around the Hartford area. And then Boston is very close to the snowfall in this scenario as well. So this is definitely something we're going to need to pay very close attention to. And you see that for New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., in this scenario, you don't experience snowfall. So depending on when that negative tilt forms, that will determine who will get the heaviest snowfall along the northeast coast. And I'll keep you guys updated once we get more higher level of certainty with the forecast. So here's my forecast when it comes to this next potential major Midwest and Northeast snowstorm. So keep in mind, this forecast is definitely subject to change. This forecast could be completely wrong within the next several days, depending on what the computer models are depicting and how the computer models changed their forecast. But as of right now, this is what you should expect. Well, a large area of over a foot of snow throughout upstate New York, and we could experience a very significant snowstorm right around the Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. area. New York City is right up along the border, and a large portion of the Midwest could experience 3 to 6 inches of snow. This includes Ohio, Indiana, 6 to 12 inches in northern Michigan. So make sure to pay very close attention to this as a forecast. This is definitely subject to change over the next several days, but it's becoming increasingly likely that some sort of major winter storm will impact the Midwest and the Northeast. But I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather related content.